Which brings me to genetics in general. How much does it play into visceral fat and eliminating it?
Yeah, well, that's a great question too, because, I get it a lot. And so a lot of people ask the question, what role does genetics have in my health? And the sad thing, and the really concerning thing I often hear is they look at somebody that's really healthy or has had really good results, and they attribute it to their genes. Or they look at somebody who's really unhealthy, or worse yet, they look at themselves as really unhealthy, and they say, I just got bad genes. And I will look at you in your eye, and I will tell you, what a disappointing insight that you're thinking that way. Because what you want to do is understand that it's your lifestyle way more than your genes that influence your overall health. Now, that's not to say that genetics don't have the potential for causing significance, like Down syndrome. The addition of an extra chromosome in the 21st pair of chromosomes has a profound effect on the health of that individual. But for the average person, the vast majority of people, what has far greater influence is lifestyle. And what we find there are signals, switches on your genes to turn them on or turn them off. So you can either get them to express or you can stop the expression based on how you're living. So we call this area of science epigenetics. So instead of just looking at the genetic structures, we look at the triggers that signal those genetics to express whatever they will express or to suppress that expression. So if you're listening today, please, please, please do not attribute your health situation to your genetics. Ask what you can do to improve your genetics. Sort of like that, the president, the famous quote by John F. Kennedy, ask not what your country can do for you, but ask what you can do for your country. Ask not what your genes are doing for you, but what you can do for your genes. That's what I tell my clients. Change your lifestyle, live optimally, and genetics don't have nearly the influence that you think they do.
Okay. Well, while we're on genetics, one other area I want to touch on in that realm, and it comes back to the fact that this is what makes visceral fat one of the things that makes it so dangerous. The fact that people can be skinny and they can have a real problem going on inside and not know it, or they can be fat and have a lot of that subcutaneous fat and also have a lot of visceral fat, or a lot of subcutaneous fat and not a lot of visceral fat.
Yeah.
So where genetics ties in, is that genetics based? The people that can be fat and have low visceral fat, or how does that work?
Lifestyle. So the people that are really skinny, tophies, thin outside, fat inside, what we find is it's lifestyle. Either they get a lot of stress, they're drinking, they get poor sleep, they're gambling, they're staying up at night. They are eating a lot of processed foods, or they may not even be eating a lot of processed foods. They're just eating processed foods, but not eating healthy. So, the fat they store is all stored as visceral fat. It's not being laid down as healthy subcutaneous fat. So they're mostly tophies. An example of that was the very first scan that I did, that I pulled up as an example. I forgot to make that point. Is in this scan here, this is a tophi, and in fact, the tophi is my colleague who taught me about visceral fat. The reason why he didn't exercise and he was filled with all this visceral fat because he ate rice. Chinese American, Dr. Cheng Zheng. I just call him CJ because Cheng Zheng is a hard one to say when you're an American. So CJ was filled because he ate all this rice, and so it's really lifestyle. Now, you mentioned the person that could be both fat outside and fat inside. Yeah, you can have a lot of subcutaneous fat and a lot of visceral fat. That's kind of a middle of the road. But a really interesting one that is kind of controversial, but I'm going to, I'll pull up an image. This is a person that was on the cover of Sports Illustrated magazine, and so here's a face of a model. She's pretty. She's got an attractive face, and she made it to the cover of Sports Illustrated magazine, and she's got this attractive look to her. So what we notice, and I'll show you some other pictures, is as you get if you don't have a lot of visceral fat, or more importantly, if you have not had a lot of influence of visceral fat on your face will look better. Better meaning more attractive. Pretty in a woman, handsome in a guy. And so visceral fat degrades either you being pretty or degrades you being handsome over a slow period of time. So let's look at this lady's body. Now, when this came out, lots of people said, that she's healthy, and a lot of people said, no, she's not healthy. And here's what I'm going to tell you. Pure speculation, but I'm going to guess she's healthy because she's got a pretty face and she has low visceral fat. If we scanned her, pure speculation, because I don't have an MRI, it's going to be she's mostly subcutaneous fat and mostly superficial subcutaneous fat and not a visceral fat. Now, why do I say that? Well, I've had the benefit of scanning 6,000 men and women, and premenopausal women generally have more superficial subcutaneous fat and less visceral fat relative to the male members of their species. They just have this protective benefit that allows them to not get as much visceral fat and to get more superficial subcutaneous fat, and so they have a different appearance. And so that example is a nice one. But let me show you examples of face. Another example of a face there. In myself. So let's see if that shows up. I don't know why if I got to do it to get it a little bit better. I'm sorry. Maybe I'm going to do this. I take off this. I see this light for just a second. I see a glare. Okay, that looks better. So, yeah, I wish I thought of it. Now I'm dark, but yeah, everybody knows what I look like already now. So I'll be this. It's like a Phi 2000, those little creatures in the bottom that say funny things, except I won't have anything funny to say. So this picture is me with visceral fat. This is me age 48. So you see the inflammatory affluence that visceral fat in my life from living basically 5 decades with visceral fat. And then this is me recently when visceral fat has been eliminated. So visceral fat, the appearance of your face becomes a proxy for visceral fat, similar to how love handles become a proxy for visceral fat. So anecdotally, I have realized that I can infer, not measure, but infer how much influence of visceral fat somebody's had in their face by looking at their face. And so when I walk around the Mall of America here in Minnesota, and I'm walking by thousands of people, I'm doing the visceral fat calculation because I'm like a little supercomputer with that. And that's what I do. I analyze visceral fat so I can see it in their faces. And then I also have anecdotally thousands of people I've worked with to eliminate their visceral fat, and I see how much of a beneficial change it has in their face over a period of time. So when clients come to us, we take extensive photographs of their face, of their abdomens, of their chests and backs and their necks, fingernails and hands, and we're analyzing the impact visually on these external manifestations in the body and correlating to visceral fat. It's a whole new area of science that I'm trying to develop and birth, really, to look at external biomarkers with the hope that I obviate the need of doing MRI scans, because ancestrally, Jesse, we never had MRI scans and we never had blood studies. We just tracked faces and bodies and muscle and fingernails and eyelashes and hair and spider veins and arterial pulses. That's what we paid attention to for hundreds of thousands of years. And that's how humans always improved. And ever since these things called lab studies and scientific studies have come out, we started spiraling down. And so the impact of how we look and how we perform, sadly, is deteriorating over a period of time. So my definition of health is how you look and how you perform. And I teach people to assess that through key biological indicators that I do with photographs and, also MRI scans I do. But I compare MRI scans to validate that. If I just say, hey, you need to pay attention to your skin and your eyelashes and, spider veins, people wouldn't listen to me. This guy's a quack. What about my cholesterol? That's what they say. How about my triglycerides, my fasting insulin, my ApoB? Look, it's really your skin and your body and your muscle and how you perform. But I help people correlate that with visceral fat, fat around the heart, fat within their muscle. That gets their attention. That starts, it's way more early, upstream. Your ApoB, all these other things are way downstream. They're lagging behind. You want to really track what's the way upstream, what's much earlier, is your visceral fat, your fat in your muscle, your fat around your organs.
So I want to come back to our swimsuit model there and pose a question that I asked before, but I want to get clarification. For somebody like her, who, again, you're speculating, they're bigger on the outside, and you're assuming because of the way her face looks, she's thinner on the inside. And when we talked about genetics and different fat in different areas, you had said it was lifestyle. So I'm trying to picture what lifestyle would lead somebody to have that type of body where they're bigger on the outside, yet fat in the inside.
Yeah, so it's a good
Sorry,
question.
thin on the inside.
Yeah. So the FODI, fat outside, thin inside. So probably the simplest explanation for why they have excessive adiposity or too large of amount of fat on the outside, but they have a very small amount or no visceral fat inside, a FODI, the short answer is that is a woman that's simply eating and not doing a lot of exercise. They are eating in excess of their caloric needs. And so the energy that they consume in the form of food, calories, is being stored. It's in excess of what their physiological requirements are. So it's stored as accumulated fat reserves underneath their skin and subcutaneous. So basically, what you want to do is not eat in excess of your requirements, because why would nature not want you to do? Why would it be more ideal to eat more aligned with an ideal amount of food? It's because the process, the debt accumulated, the cost of eating that food, digesting that food, and then laying down that fat is not free. It comes at an expense to us, a tax to our body. So what you want to do is eat what you need to eat, digest what you need to eat, and lay down the appropriate amount so that you're not paying for more than what you need. And so that woman just overpaid in her life for what she should have is paid less, and she would have gotten a better result. So hopefully that helps explain it. So
I think I understand. So you're saying it's an energy, a calorie thing, because obviously one of the 5 strategies is the processed foods. So you're saying she would be not eating processed foods because that would add visceral fat, but there's probably too many calories being consumed. If you enjoyed that clip, press here for the full episode. I'll see you over there.
Nothing that I'm aware of as a physician whose passion is to help people become the best biological versions of themselves possible, to optimize their health.